The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine and the associated growing economic difficulties have intensified protest sentiments in our southern neighbor. Recently, the authoritative American newspaper The Wall Street Journal reported that some members of Vladimir Putin's inner circle in the Kremlin may turn against him. Earlier, the National Security Journal said that voices of discontent are increasingly being heard in Russia, even within the military. Among the military, both active and retired, frustration is growing over Vladimir Putin's failed strategy in the war against Ukraine. Many generals believe that the Kremlin's actions are not only leading to disaster at the front but are also destroying the very state. Even before the invasion began in February 2022, retired Colonel General Leonid Ivashov, the former head of the All-Russian Officers' Assembly, sounded the alarm. He publicly called on Putin to resign, warning that the real threat to Russia was not NATO, but corruption, a demographic crisis, and incompetent leadership. After the war began, Ivashov only intensified his criticism, declaring that the conflict with Ukraine would lead to the destruction of Russian statehood and mass casualties. In December 2024, the general compared Putin's regime to that of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, noting that the Kremlin was heading down the same path, toward internal collapse and international isolation. According to him, Russia was turning into a besieged fortress, where decisions were being made not by military professionals, but by people out of touch with reality. According to Ivashov, the gap between professional military personnel and the Kremlin elite has become obvious. The former are forced to bear responsibility for failures at the front, while the latter continue to advance their careers and grow rich amid the war. Alina Polyakova, president of the Center for European Policy Analysis, added that the Russian dictator has no interest in ending the conflict, as any ceasefire without victory would make him look weak. She added that there are people in Putin's inner circle who would like to see him go, and, as soon as he shows weakness, his reign will be over. At the same time, the Kremlin continues to claim that Russia is capable of fighting forever, yet the aggressor state's economy continues to suffer serious losses. Analysts note that potential measures, including money printing, rising inflation, cuts to social spending, and a shift from voluntary to forced mobilization, could exacerbate internal tensions within society, which are already noticeably growing. Many Russians do not support Putin's strategy of destroying Ukraine at any cost. The symbol of the silent protest has been the arrests of street musicians performing songs banned by the regime, including Swan Lake by rapper Noise MC, dedicated to the death of the dictator. French President Emmanuel Macron said Tuesday that a US-brokered peace plan for Ukraine goes in the right direction, but also cautioned it must not be a capitulation, enabling Russia to later renew hostilities. According to Associated Press, speaking on the sidelines of the African Union-European Union summit in Luanda, Angola, Macron said any peace plan must have robust security guarantees for Ukraine and for us Europeans. Washington's 28-point plan presented last week caused alarm by heavily aligning with Moscow's demands in the nearly 4-year war caused by its invasion. The plan pressed Ukraine to hand over some territory to Russia and reduce its army. It also sought Europe's agreement that Ukraine will never be admitted into the NATO military alliance. Macron insisted that the European Union want peace, but not a peace that is essentially a capitulation, meaning one that puts Ukraine in an impossible situation. If we are weak in Ukraine, he said, if we say it's no longer our problem, if we say they are very far away, as some people think, we will be giving up on Ukraine that very day. European and US negotiators met in Geneva Sunday for further talks. Speaking afterwards, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio appeared to roll back on the 7-day deadline for accepting the plan, saying that more time is needed. The US and Ukraine said the talks were productive, but neither side shared details of the issues still unresolved. Macron's comments came as Russia launched a wave of attacks on Ukraine overnight into Tuesday, killing at least 6 people in strikes that hit city buildings and energy infrastructure. A Ukrainian attack in southern Russia killed 3 people and damaged homes, authorities said.
Nous voulons la paix. Mais nous ne voulons pas une paix qui soit en effet une capitulation, c'est-à-dire qui mette l'Ukraine dans une situation impossible, qui donne toute liberté à la Russie au fond de continuer, d'aller plus loin, y compris vers d'autres Européens, et mettre notre sécurité à tous en danger. Le plan qui a été proposé par les États-Unis d'Amérique, d'abord, c'est une démarche qui va dans le bon sens, la paix. Ensuite, il y a des éléments dans ce plan qui méritaient d'être discutés, négociés, améliorés. C'est pour ça que nous, ce que nous disons, c'est qu'on doit avoir des garanties de sécurité robustes pour l'Ukraine et pour nous, Européens.
Concrètement, ces garanties de sécurité aujourd'hui.
La première des garanties de sécurité, c'est la régénération de l'armée ukrainienne. La première chose qui protégera l'Ukraine, c'est sa propre armée. Et donc tout le débat qu'il y a eu à Genève ces derniers jours, c'était de ne pas limiter les forces armées ukrainiennes. Le grand risque, et c'est ce qu'il faut comprendre, si nous sommes faibles en Ukraine, si on dit c'est plus notre problème, au fond ils sont très loin, ce que pensent certaines personnes, on va laisser tomber l'Ukraine. Ce jour-là, vous donnez un signal de faiblesse. Le jour où vous donnez un signal de faiblesse à la Russie, qui, au fond, depuis 10 ans, a fait un choix stratégique, c'est de redevenir une puissance impériale, c'est-à-dire d'avancer partout où on est faible. Eh bien, elle va continuer d'avancer.
Russia is facing a command crisis that has now broken into public view. The most powerful general in the country is trapped inside a system that no longer trusts him and can no longer function without him. Jason J. Smart, expert on Ukraine, said this. According to him, General Valery Gerasimov has vanished repeatedly from high-level meetings and battlefield reports. He reappears only in short bursts of carefully edited footage that offers no real evidence about when or where the recordings were made. The confusion around him is not accidental, because the Russian military command structure is tearing itself apart from the inside, the expert added. Jason J. Smart said that key deputies linked to Gerasimov have been arrested on corruption charges. These officers were responsible for secure communications, fortifications and logistics. Money intended for soldiers and battlefield protection was siphoned into private empires, luxury spending or personal real estate. The scandal has shaken the Russian military because it confirms what many suspected. The system that was supposed to run the war is sinking under the weight of theft and infighting. Battlefield failures have accelerated the crisis. Russian units are suffering from friendly fire, broken supply lines, and collapsing morale. Intercepts reveal officers begging for basic equipment that never arrives. Gerasimov cannot be removed because his firing would signal a total admission that the war has failed. Putin keeps him in place to absorb public anger and to shield the Kremlin from responsibility, the expert added. Russian military forces have failed to effectively advance along multiple axes in Ukraine, seized limited territory, lost substantial quantities of equipment relative to Ukraine, and suffered remarkably high rates of fatalities and casualties. There has been a growing chorus of policymakers and analysts who argue that the Russian military holds the initiative in the war in Ukraine and will likely triumph. Russian forces have advanced an average of only 50 meters per day in such areas as Kharkiv, slower than during the Somme offensive in World War I, where French and British forces advanced an average of 80 meters per day. Russia has lost substantial quantities of equipment across the land, air, and sea domains, highlighting the sharp material toll of its attrition campaign. Russian fatalities and casualties have been extraordinary. Russia's poor performance has likely been caused by several factors. The Russian military's reliance on dismounted infantry and mechanized forces to take Ukrainian territory, Russia's failure to use operational fires in a coordinated way that enables maneuver, and Ukraine's effective utilization of defense in depth. For the United States, increased sanctions on Russia and continuing US and European military assistance to Ukraine would likely raise the costs for Moscow of a protracted war and could facilitate peace talks. Russia has some advantages, with a substantial industrial base and an ability to mobilize a much larger number of soldiers. Nevertheless, the Russian military has struggled to conduct ground force operations at scale, overcome prepared Ukrainian defenses, or break through Ukrainian lines to achieve operationally significant gains. The Russian military has also faced challenges with force quality and the loss of experienced officers.